Hello friend, I want to tell you about the BMW X3 car. The body measuring less than 4.6 m in length means that the BMW X3, regardless of the brand, can be safely placed next to such proposals as the Honda CR-V, Toyota RAV4, or Mitsubishi Outlander. And if you take a close look at the prices, the Bavarian car does not have to be more expensive, neither to buy nor to maintain. However, it offers much more. First of all, the wheelbase beats the aforementioned models hands down. Almost 2,800 millimeters should provide much more space in the cabin. The X3 is indeed a spacious car, but due to the engines placed longitudinally, such a large distance between the wheels was technically forced. The fact is that you can't complain about the amount of space, while the 480-liter boot should be considered average. What Japanese SUVs usually do not have is permanent four-wheel drive, although the RAV4 too did, and excellent balance, and therefore great driving characteristics. In addition, strong engines, high travel comfort, although the suspension is quite stiff, and good interior soundproofing. BMW X3, E83 engines. Which one to choose? If you're looking for this car with a petrol engine, arm yourself with patience. The market is made up of over 90% diesel cars. The petrol engines in the X3 are decent units, although the newer versions from the N series sometimes struggle with the failure of the valvetronic system, valve lifters, and therefore damage to the cylinder head. This usually results from negligence in the field of changing the oil. The good news is that direct petrol injection was not used here, so it is possible to install a gas installation. If you decide to buy a car with a petrol engine, it is best to choose a model up to 2006 with the M54 unit, i.e. 2.5, 192 horsepower, or 3.0, 231 horsepower. The 4-cylinder 2-liter is a bit too weak and may disappoint, while the 3.0 with 272 horsepower may turn out to be expensive to service. Nevertheless, you can repair faults in petrol engines cheaper than in diesel engines. Note, all petrol engines have dual-mass wheels. The diesel engine range also consists of two series, the early M and the later N. Let's start with the former. The 2.0 engine marked M47 develops 150 horsepower and has adequate performance. It is not a reliable design, and typical faults include jammed flaps in the intake system, risk of tearing off and falling into the engine, stretching timing chain, injection system faults, and a rapidly wearing dual-mass flywheel. Theoretically, the engine can be a big expense, but the fact is that it has a good reputation, is durable, and importantly, quite cheap to repair. In addition, it is a popular unit installed in almost all BMW models from that period, so if necessary, it is easy to buy a used engine. Theoretically, the better solution is the 3.0 M57 diesel, which comes in 3 power versions, 204, 218, 286 horsepower. It develops a powerful torque of 410 to 580 nanometers and gives the X3 great dynamics. It is generally considered an almost indestructible engine, but it also has its drawbacks. One of the most common faults is the failure of the vibration damper pulley. It is also worth knowing that piezo injectors were already used in this engine, which are much more expensive to repair than electromagnetic ones like in the 2.0D unit. In addition, there are 6 of them. Since 2004, practically every diesel in the X3 has had a DPF filter. Basically, the 3.0D engine is considered more durable and less prone to failures than the 2.0D. But if you compare the costs of repairs in the same area, the bill for a larger engine is usually higher. You also have to take into account the load on the drive system. A dual-mass flywheel and manual transmissions or automatic transmissions may give up more quickly with a more powerful engine. A completely different story is the N47 unit, a 2-liter diesel offered since 2007 in a 177 horsepower version, and since 2009 in a 143 horsepower version. The latter was designated as 18D. The engine has a newer and, therefore, more expensive to repair injection system with piezoelectric injectors, a more failure-prone turbocharger with electronic control, and the icing on the cake is a low-durability chain timing drive, also located on the gearbox side. If it makes noise, the costs run into hundreds of dollars. The inspection alone can cost a lot because it involves disconnecting the engine from the gearbox. There have been cases of damage to the sprocket on the drive shaft or even a broken chain. Is it worth buying a BMW X3 with the N47 engine? In my opinion, yes. The 177 horsepower version could be a great alternative to the 3.0 with 204 horsepower. There are known cases of not only serious faults, but also runs of 300 kilometers and more, without any problems. The basis is good service. Remember that buying any diesel is a risk, and the N47 engine does not have to be more expensive to maintain than the 3.0. Which diesel to choose for the BMW X3? Each of the engines offered for the X3 can be assessed similarly. The most economical version is the early M47 version with 150 horsepower. It can be repaired cheaply. Newer ones can be troublesome, but usually everything happens up to about 150,000 kilometers. Most often, cars have higher mileage. Do you care about performance? Choose the 3.0D, but it's worth having some cash for a large starter package. If you're looking for real economy, the best choice will be the M54 petrol engine with a gas installation. What goes wrong in the BMW X3 E83? Mechanically, the car is related to the 3 Series E46 model, but it debuted 5 years later. The design is therefore proven and refined. The entire body and chassis have been carefully protected against corrosion, and even the paint is solid. The interior elements are worse, as they can be very worn in older cars. As befits a fairly old premium car, equipment elements may fail. Xenon headlights will certainly be expensive to repair. When buying, check that everything works. The X3's front and rear suspension is a fairly filigree design, but inexpensive to repair. xDrive could incur high costs. An important element of this model is the xDrive drive, offered for all engine versions. It is worth emphasizing this, because the xDrive designation itself appeared only in 2008, and more models without it also have four-wheel drive. The system works on the principle of distributing the driving force to the axles by an electronically controlled multi-plate clutch. The 40 to 60 drive distribution gives pleasant driving characteristics on loose surfaces. Electronic traction control takes care of catching traction of even one wheel in difficult conditions. It is worth emphasizing that this is not an off-road drive, but a road drive, so you should not be surprised when the X3 gets stuck in mud or a deep snowdrift. What's more, in such situations it is easy to overheat the brakes. Although I must admit that apart from the low ground clearance, the car copes well off-road. It is worth emphasizing that the entire system is quite durable, especially compared to the larger X5. The weak point, however, remains the transfer case, which usually lasts about 100 kilometers. But don't worry. When it breaks down, the owner of the car learns that the oil needs to be changed, although the manufacturer does not recommend it. After repair and gaining new awareness, the durability is much higher. It is important to use the right quality oil, changed every 40 kilometers. The best choice is the original one. It's a good idea to ask the seller when he last changed the oil. If he's surprised by the question, you can expect a worn reducer sooner or later. It is worth paying attention to one simple thing before buying: whether the tires are the same on all wheels. Different tires, size, manufacturer, cause the system to be kept constantly ready, as if the car was constantly driving in a slight skid, which strains the system elements and causes failures. Only cars with the M package can have different tire widths on the front and rear axles, but their diameter is exactly the same. Is it worth buying a used BMW X3? E83? In my opinion, Yes, although it is good to be aware of the car's class and the engines and xDrive drive, which are quite expensive to repair. However, when you look at other SUVs from popular brands, the BMW X3 is no worse in terms of maintenance costs. Thank you for listening to me. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and rate my video. If you know of any problems with this car that I haven't mentioned, be sure to write about them in the comments.